Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. With this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 2 of the anime series Arslan Senki, and this was all kinds of badass. I mean, picking up from the first episode, which definitely had me intrigued and had me curious to expand upon this world, this episode just thrust me into the thick of it and had me gripped by the lapels all the way through. Of course, we're picking up right where we left off, in a sense, only we've jumped, so many years ahead. This is the Pars Era 320, and that's about 3-4 years later after the first episode. But it's still very much the status quo. We're seeing, Varese putting Arslan to the test in sword fighting skills and trying to train him. And basically, he's still getting his ass handed to him. He's very much, disgruntled over the fact that he just can't seem to hold his own, even against Varese in a sort of testing format. And he suspects that maybe it'll be real-life battle that he'll have to endure before he understands the mechanics of, preserving his own life and being forceful with a weapon. And, wow, it's, sort of a great big-time coincidence that he thinks of this right as they are interrupted by a dispatch from the king himself, Andragoras III, saying, "We are going to war again, effectively, with the Lusitanians." And it's highly just, action-packed, and the battlefield aesthetic that we had, at the start of the first episode is that much greater because we know Arslan himself, this is, for all intents and purposes, much as they promised in the PV of the previous episode at the tail end, this is his maiden battle. And so he's very much, because he is a timid and compassionate prince, which seems to be, some people are predicting that's going to be his downfall, we see that he is somewhat fearful, but he's still very much a strategist. We still have a level of strategy coming to the fore as they're sitting there and, they're faced with this great plain, and all of a sudden there's this storm weather encroaching upon them, as perceived, through Arslan's dealing with the one eagle, because the feathers are wet, and that means just fog is going to completely surround them, and he's fearful of this particular going to war in this kind of framework where you can't even see so far ahead of yourself, let alone the other army, the opposing faction, and everything like that. And so we find that, basically Varese and these three boys whose lives, Arslan had spared in the previous episode, they're dedicating their lives to him. But Varese is like, well, while we have some quiet time before the battle begins, let's, have some more sparring going on. And basically this is interrupted because Daryun, Varese's nephew or whatever it is, he has gone to speak to the king, out of turn apparently, but to voice his concerns that we should maybe fall back, retreat even, because we don't know what exactly is going to be going on in this particular battle. If we can't see ahead of ourselves, and even if we outnumber the Lusitanians, these are really valid concerns, and they are concerns to be matched by, of course, Arslan himself. And so they go to witness this scene where the king, just a pompous, bigoted a-hole that he is, he's so self-assured because he has not lost any battles, and he hasn't had anyone, within his own faction kind of selling, their kingdom short at any time previous to this. He thinks, they can do no wrong. Nothing can touch them or affect them in any sort of negative way. We are going to stay here. We are going to fight the Lusitanians, and we are going to win the battle. It doesn't matter what the weather beholds in all this kind of situation. And so he demotes Daryun, and it's kind of sad because, you're in agreement with both Arslan and Daryun if you're watching with that in mind, and seeing this, as I say, fog encroaching the entire battlefield and not being able to necessarily know, even though, sort of the Pars Kingdom thinks they have, this entire plain like the back of their hand, they understand it and how to utilize it. Well, unfortunately, they haven't been there in so long. Basically, the Lusitanians have utilized this time factor to their advantage, building towers that can move and as we see, digging trenches and filling them with oil, just gruesome. It gets absolutely gruesome. What is more intriguing to me, of course, is after this scene where Varese basically slaps his own nephew and is like, "You spoke out of turn," and the king decides, "Well, I'll give you another chance, Daryun, to prove yourself on the battlefield. Maybe you'll retain your command and your position and your ranking." once they leave, Varese is very much, speaking about preserving and protecting the life of Arslan. He asks a question that I find very poignant and very suggestive about which of the two, the king and the queen, does Arslan most resemble. He asks this of Daryun, and Daryun basically says, I would probably think more the queen. Is it just physical appearance because Arslan has white hair and the blue eyes and he doesn't physically match the king? Or can it also be read further that his compassion and his analytical mindset and his qualms that are born out of a very human and compassionate side are these two things that, appeal to Arslan because of his mother, even though it seems like there is some sort of, less than familial connection between his parents, between themselves, and between he and them singularly as well. And it begged the question to my mind, is Varese fearing what ends up occurring to a point, but I was also thinking it could go as far as the king looks down upon his own son, the prince, especially with the way he was very backhanded to him. What are you even doing here? Witnessing the scene with Daryun getting his, stripes removed, if you will. And so I began to suspect and fear that maybe Varese is hinting around to the fact that factions within his own kingdom may go against Arslan, and this could even lead up to his father. But as we see in this episode, we have Daryun basically voicing his promise to preserve and protect as much as he can Arslan's life, no matter what. Varese is very sort of specific, saying, forget the kingdom, protect the boy. That situation, and that was absolutely captivating and compelling to me. Just, again, gripped me by the lapels. And so from this point, this battle ensues, and we see that the Lusitanians have, as I say, utilized their time, to build all these sort of weapons, and they have, bows and arrows coming off the top of these wooden mobile towers, stuff you've seen, out of real world history and such like that. And basically all just havoc ensues. Everyone is split apart. At least one of the three boys who dedicated their lives to Arslan loses his life. Arslan is, completely set off by himself. All of his protectoral guard is gone, and Daryun only just barely manages to try to seek him out. Just as we find the traitor in the midst, the man Carlin, who, the king has been told. I thought the king might have been dead at this point, but in fact he wasn't, and he's concerned about Carlin's whereabouts, which coincides with the reveal that Carlin is now approaching Arslan and is going to effectively murder him. He wants to kill him on the battlefield. We're not quite sure why. Nothing is revealed as to the motivations and machinations of Carlin, why he's been put up to this, if he's sided with the Lusitanians, how that's all going to play out. Surely there's something in the fold for him. But what is absolutely captivating once again is that cliffhanger where Daryun is finally caught up and is slashing the hell out of Carlin's people to save the life, effectively, of Arslan, who, I might add, has been holding his own. He actually fended off an attacker, a singular attacker, and he's been holding his own. Carlin on horseback with a sword is attacking him, and other than getting knocked on his butt right before Daryun shows up, he's holding his own. He is, showing the promise of the prince who would be king, the boy who would be king. And I have to wonder again, is this the limit of, the things that are going to have to test him? Will he perchance have to prove himself to his father? Will his father, react with sort of looking down on him from this? You shouldn't have ever been attacked or put into this position. If you were smarter, if you were really my son, you wouldn't have let yourself be so succumbing to this. It remains to be seen exactly what threats Arslan's going to have to face, both within and outside of his own kingdom. But I'm enraptured. I cannot wait to see what happens next. I can't wait to see Daryun open a can of whoop-ass on Carlin's forces and see what the bigger picture is as we take steps forward. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 2 of Arslan Senki, if you've seen it, if you were as impressed with it as I was, because, wow, I'm thoroughly on board for the next episode after this one, certainly. And, yeah, anything goes in the comments below, as long as it's not spoilery material, as I always ask. And so, otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.